It is Sunday, April 26, 2026, and with me, as always, is my friend Pete. How you doing, Pete?
Glenn, how are you? Good morning. Welcome back from your European vacation. I love the photos you sent from Italy. It looked like it was a great time.
It was a great time. We visited Rome, and we had perfect weather. We did the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Trevi Fountain, the Spanish Steps, the Pantheon, Villa Borghese, the Orangery. We
Sistine Chapel, I
did
presume.
Sistine Chapel. Yep.
Were you able to hang out in the Sistine Chapel for a while?
For a moment, I wouldn't say a while, but there's definitely it was interesting.
They keep you
they
moving
keep
along.
you moving. And we did a day trip to Florence as well. We visited the Accademia, where we saw David and Michelangelo's unfinished works, which you had referenced in a prior episode, which was really special. And we ended the trip the last day in the Trastevere neighborhood. We did a mosaic making class where the four of us went into an artist studio and selected a pattern and sort of stenciled it out, and then broke apart little cubes of marble to like reassemble in a mosaic. It was 4 hours of, we were all in the zone, all
Yeah,
focused.
super intense.
Yeah.
I think I would call it mosaic.
Mosaic.
But,
I think you're right. I think my family has accused me of mispronouncing it. So let's say it's mosaic.
I think it's mosaic, but that's who cares?
Mm-hmm.
I would assume that takes some. I don't think I would have done very well in mosaic class, given the dexterity that.
It definitely. It would be. So there's like a tool that's like a log on its end with an awl, an AWL kind of right on the top, and then you take the little cube and you go like tink 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 with this kind of spiky hammer, and you try to break it into a triangle or a trapezoid or tinier rectangles. Yeah, it's interestingly, like the different colors have very different consistencies, and so you're used to maybe a harder one, and then you get a soft one, and or vice. It was really fascinating.
Well, it shows you the painstaking effort.
Oh yeah.
And concentration that was required to make these incredible works of art.
Yep.
Whether it's mosaic stuff or even some of the great paintings you saw. I presume you went to the Uffizi Gallery and saw all the great artworks in the Uffizi.
Yep, and statues and all those beautiful forms of art that take a tremendous amount of discipline and craftsmanship. So it was terrific. We had a great time, and we're now back home adjusting to East Coast time zone.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, no, me too. We had a great time. We're already thinking about what's our next adventure going to be.
Funny, I think in the last 10 or 12 days since I saw you, I feel like I've declined a fair amount, mostly in my breathing. Really just almost getting worse by the day, which is making things difficult.
Yeah.
Makes the nighttime and first thing in the morning like intolerably difficult. Really, really tough.
Yeah. Is that the apparatus or just like the feeling of trying to start the day?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe a little bit of everything.
Sure.
I'm super weak. It just takes a while to get, it's like anything. Sometimes it takes a little while to get the motor running. But like waking up with breathing distress is not exactly a fun way to face the day.
Yeah.
And I seem to be doing that more frequently, even though I'm wearing my non-invasive ventilation equipment.
Right. Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, Pete.
Well, it's just, thank you. That's, it's part of this disease, unfortunately.
Yeah. We've talked about how, ALS is a disease that slowly takes away your agency. And we've talked about, you said many times, where the puck is headed. We've talked also about, the reality of, laws in Massachusetts and other places in the United States for people listening who love you but might not understand the realities of this disease, can you talk a little bit about like what your outlook is, where you're finding peace, what where's the puck headed?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting near the end, I think. I get great joy out of talking to you every week. I have received a lot of visitors. I've dialed that back considerably in the last week or so. But I'm getting text messages and emails and phone calls and some visitors, and obviously my kids have all kind of put their lives on hold a little bit. Jack has been working from home for the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. And Mike, who lives in Beverly's here all the time, and Lily has come up from basically taking a little pause in her master's program, and will make up some work in the summer. I think to the agency thing, there are tough decisions that people with this disease need to make, given the fundamental fact that there is no surviving. And, there's a few ways to face that, but I think for everybody, it's about quality of life and what one considers an unacceptable quality of life, and sort of how to deal with that. And I've had to ponder those questions quite a bit. I can carry on. Is there a specific direction you might want to hear about, or?
I mean, it's great that Jack, Mike, and Lily are able to be close to you. I had the pleasure of catching up with Lily a bit before we got started today, and it seems like folks are really in a great place, and they're here for you. I think I'm inspired not just by your strength in this moment, but by your families as well. By Lynn's, by your children's. It's really something.
Oh, it's I've been impressed by my kids in terms of their ability to, sort of process this like adults. And obviously, we're all really sad, but they also see up close, how difficult life is as your body fails you.
Yeah.
I would, by the way, I got a lovely card from your mother, which we can talk about offline, but before I forget.
Yeah.
Really beautiful card that she sent me. There is a Frontline, the show Frontline on PBS has a episode from, I don't know, it might have been 10 years ago or so, and it's called The Suicide Tourist. And it's about a man, an American guy, although he lives in England, who has ALS, who chooses to go to Dignitas in Switzerland and to end his life on his own terms. And, that process is called medical assistance in dying, or MAID. And in the United States, there are, I don't know the number, maybe a dozen or so states that have passed laws that enable people to get MAID or to go through the MAID process. And people can read up on it. There are lots of governance issues, and I know there's a lot of talk about how it could be used in a bad way, or I've looked into it.
Yeah.
And the governance around the process is very robust. In any event, there are only 2 states that allow made for non-residents of the state. That's Vermont and Oregon. And I gave serious consideration to that and went through all the processes to go to Vermont because I wanted to have that as an option to get back to your point of agency.
Yeah.
Some small percentage of people decide that they want to live, period, and want every intervention possible, which usually includes, always includes getting a breathing tube. And obviously, all nutrition comes through a feeding tube. And, you need 24-hour care, and it's a pretty difficult life. A very small percentage of ALS patients choose that route, believe it or not. Maybe 5 or 7% is what I've been told by the team at Mass General. And really, the third option is to just stop nutrition and hydration, and that's called Vsed, voluntary stoppage of eating and drinking. And then it's up to individuals. I guess the fourth thing is to do nothing. And if you do nothing and you've decided that you don't want a breathing tube, you're going to suffocate, essentially.
Right.
And doing Vsed through hospice is a way to control your demise in a way that there's lots of medications and it's a comfortable way to die.
Right.
And you can die at home, and you have to come to grips with the reality that that you're going to die, and that's the hard part. And a good quote that I'm trying to answer for myself is, does the quality of my life continue to serve me? And I think when you can look at that question and answer it and say the quality of my life no longer serves me, that's where you have the opportunity to control the end.
Right.
And one of the quotes that the guy in this Frontline show, if you just Google Frontline, the Suicide Tourist, by the way,
Sure.
it'll come right up and you can watch it. And it's maybe 40 minutes or something. And anybody who's interested, I would absolutely recommend it because it's takes you through the unthinkable aspects of making a decision like that.
Right.
And one of the quotes, this guy Craig Ewert was his name. He said, "I'm not tired of living. I'm tired of the disease. And I still enjoy it enough that I'd like to continue. But the thing is, I really can't." And that was what he was saying, right around the time he was choosing to end his life with, medicinal intervention. And I think it's important for people to understand that that's kind of the reality of what one is facing with this disease. To me, it is shocking that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has not passed a MAID law. There's obviously lots of political discussion around reproductive rights and access to abortion clinics for all sorts of legitimate reasons that this state is, the Commonwealth is fine with. It's just shocking to me that we don't allow people to choose how they want to end their lives or when they want to end their lives when they're facing a terminal illness and they're going to die.
Right.
Going to die one way or the other from this disease, and to not enable people who are of sound mind can administer the medication on their own. It's under multiple physicians' guidance and approval, and
Right.
it's separated. You can't, just go to Vermont and the next day off yourself. I mean, it is a thorough process. And the fact that we don't have that in this state just boggles my mind, for whatever that's worth, and sort of political commentary.
Yeah.
So those are some of the issues that I'm deeply engaged in
Yeah.
thinking about at the moment.
Yeah. That's heavy, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've done enough thinking about it that it's, I can sort of speak about it in a matter of fact doesn't quite capture it, but
Right.
just in a rational, like, this is what it is.
Yeah, you've been over this terrain many times.
Many
In
times.
your head, I'd imagine, and in conversations with Lynn and your kids and close family and friends.
Now, sometimes people, they get an infection in their feeding tube or something, and just choose not to deal with it. Certainly here, if I had a heart attack or a stroke or some sort of serious medical situation that is life-threatening, we're not calling 911,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we'd let Mother Nature take care of itself. My wishes are very clearly expressed in written form and verbally to my wife and to the hospice people and everything else. Because the other reality is, if if I did have a stroke and we call 911, I go to the hospital. Yeah, they're gonna intubate me and put me on a breathing device and
Right.
keep me alive, because that's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
And it's going to take a couple of days for Lynn to get the paperwork and all that, and then they pull the plug.
Right.
I don't want that.
Right.
And so this is partially a public service announcement to remind everybody to codify what you think your wishes are and make a legal document out of it. Not because you're going to get ALS. It's like that's a low, but you might get in a car accident.
Right.
You might, whatever. There's a million things that can happen
Lots
that are a
of
problem.
Yeah.
And if you don't have this stuff codified, it's a much more complicated situation. For not only for you,
For your
but
love.
for your loved ones who are going to be forced to do some decision making. And if they don't know what your wishes are, most of the time the decision is going to be keep the person alive for all, under all circumstances. And there's many times that people may not exactly want that. So anyway, deep and dark topic today, but it's
an important one.
one. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, especially in the context of this journey of ALS. It's interesting for you to have some quantitative sense of the statistics of which folks choose sort of which interventions or decline which interventions. Is that your physician? Is that talking with the folks at Compassionate Care? Like, what's your... How do you even have conversations and learn about this type of thing?
Well, certainly early on, with the care team at Mass General, certainly Dr. Barry, my neurologist, and Aaron, who was my primary nurse practitioner, but the whole team there, they'll meet you where you want to be met.
Yeah.
If I may put it that way.
Sure.
And I asked a lot of specific questions that made it pretty clear I'm comfortable talking about, this, all of this
Different
stuff.
Outcomes.
Whereas other people, they don't want to know. They just
Yeah.
sort of take it day by day.
Yeah.
Not one is not better than the other. And so I asked a lot of questions about end of life decision making. And I remember when I asked about the breathing tube, I sort of said, what percentage of ALS patients get a breathing tube? And I thought it was, 40, 50, some significant number. And Dr. Barry said 5%, 10% maybe.
Lower, a lot lower.
Much lower than I would have thought. I've certainly talked to the hospice folks really around like what's going to happen if the decision is to stop nutrition, like
Yeah. What does that feel
what
like?
happens
Right.
specifically,
Yeah.
day by day kind of thing. How long does it take?
Yeah.
How do you ensure that it's peaceful and whatnot? I've met many times with the hospice social worker, who's Joan, who has been really, really helpful thinking about the issues, and both from my perspective and talking to the kids. Whitley, my aide, has been pretty distraught as she sees me declining.
Yeah.
And so Joan has met with her, and
Wow.
and then Ron Hoffman from Compassionate Care ALS has been really helpful. He has obviously seen this hundreds and hundreds of times, the decisions that people make and when they make them,
Yeah.
at what stage of the disease. And so that doesn't, where I fit on some bell curve of decision making is not, I'm interested in that just as a curiosity, but it doesn't really affect the decisions that I'm going
That
to
you're
make.
going to make. Right.
So it's sort of everybody involved, and I found everybody in sort of the ALS community are happy to dive in on these topics to the degree the person with ALS wants to go there.
Yeah.
But you got to bring it up because that different
Right.
people want to hear different things or don't want to hear certain things, and that's
Yeah.
totally understandable.
Yeah.
I'm more of a planner, and I want to know what's coming
Yeah. Yeah.
and all that.
Yep. So we've talked about, I think a little bit in the past, a little bit today, sort of the various interventions that are remaining. The breathing tube, which just to be a little bit more specific, so you have some sort of assistive apparatus you use at nighttime. We alluded to it at the beginning.
And quite a bit during the day now also.
During the day also.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that sort of mechanically assists your lung movement so you can get what you need, oxygen and all that. And it sounds like the next level of intervention is more of a, I don't want to say permanent, but more of a full-time.
Yeah. The way, there's two categories of breathing support. There's non-invasive
Okay.
breathing support and invasive breathing support.
Okay.
It's a good way to think about it. And the non-invasive is just it's not all that different from a CPAP machine for people with sleep apnea. The CPAP machine, as I understand it, really just keeps your airway open.
Right.
A BiPAP machine, which is what I am on, is like something that straps around your head, goes over your nose, and blows, air just from the room. It's not an oxygen tank.
Yep.
And it
Forcing
forces air into your lungs, and gets the air out.
Right.
So it just makes breathing easier.
Right.
Like you can, presumably you can hear my breathing is a little labored at the moment.
Right.
If I have the BiPAP on, I just have to work less hard to breathe. It's a little more difficult to talk because you got to sort of time the stuff.
Okay.
Invasive, breathing, ventilation is, they drill a hole in your throat into your windpipe and
Go that
stick
way.
a tube down there, and they're also just blowing air in.
Right.
So I don't have an oxygen issue.
Right.
I just have it's like, think about your diaphragm as like bellows.
Right.
The bellows don't work very well. So it's not about oxygen, it's just about the capacity of pulling air into your lungs and getting the air out of your lungs.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you don't have the invasive type, and you've indicated in the past that that's I think you said that's a red line for you.
Not going there.
Yeah.
Like it is when when you have invasive ventilation, like all sorts of mucus and sort of crappy shit builds up around the stoma,
Yeah.
like the hole. And you need to pull the tube out and like suction, and it's several times a day.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, obviously, I've never experienced it, but I've know what it is, and it is extraordinarily unpleasant.
Yeah.
And there's lots of choking issues, and it's not just get a breathing tube. It's
Yeah. A whole
there's a lot of unpleasantness
commitment to a
associated
whole,
with it.
yeah, like a whole lot of logistics and
Yeah,
bad stuff.
yeah.
Well, that's, I'm sure, not an easy decision, but I'm sure one that you have labored over probably for many months.
Yeah, labored over it. And look, it's not a question of if. For me, it's just a question of when. And again, back to does the quality of my life continue to serve me?
Yeah.
And each it almost feels like on a daily basis. Right now, my right hand, both of my arms, I'm struggling to lift up my arms. It just lift them up off the wherever they're lying.
Yeah.
And my hunger for air is increasing almost daily, and so that's a tough way to get through the day. But I'm at peace with it. I'm surrounded by people who love me, and you just make the most out of each day as the bottom line.
Yeah, it seems like these sorts of decisions, it's really tremendous act of courage from you, Pete, but also supporting it is an act of immense love.
Yeah.
From
my family, and no question.
Yeah.
Because it's yes.
Yeah.
Because just for me, just contemplating it. Oh, one other really interesting thing that Ron Hoffman from CCLS said to me the other day, which had my jaw falling down. He said, "You ever think about where you were before you were born?" And I frankly never have.
Yeah.
And then he said, "And does it give you anxiety to think about where you were before you were born?" No.
No.
And really, when you die, you're just going to the same place.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who was kind of blown away by that, but I'm like, boy, it's a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
You're just going back to wherever you were before you were born, and maybe that's nothing, and maybe it's something, and it's obviously a question people have been asking for millennia.
Yeah.
But a pretty profound way to think about it.
Something I remember, my freshman year in college, my roommate at the time, Keith, his dad passed away sort of unexpectedly from a heart attack. And I remember in subsequent years conversations with him where he would describe this connection he still had, where he would have conversations with his dad, like in dreams and things like that. And it kind of painted this picture that I really like, where just because we're going back to where we were before we were born doesn't mean we're gone from this world. We're still sort of in the hearts and minds of people we've touched over the course of our lives.
There's still some energy. There's still some energy that exists. It's not a physical form of life, but I love the Jewish phrase. I guess a lot of people say it, but I get it from Judaism, was "May his memory be a blessing."
Yeah.
That's a way for the person to live on.
Yeah. Well, your memory will definitely be a blessing for me and for many other people that I know, not just your family and friends, but lots of
Well,
folks.
this has been so rewarding, and we've made new friends on the podcast, from callers and
Yeah.
people that we don't know. I've heard so many people tell me, a friend of mine, I sent it to him. He lives in North Carolina, and is a regular listener, and it's just been it's been a great way to communicate with people and sort of maintain relationships from a distance. So
Yeah.
that's been really great.
Yeah.
In other news, the Red Sox fired their entire coaching staff last night, and it seems to me that the problem is not the coaching staff. Seems like the players kind of suck, but I guess that's neither here nor there. But so this conversation just popped into my head, trying to lighten things up a
I'm
little.
glad you still got some hot takes.
Well, let's wrap this. This has been a deep conversation, but I think a good one to have.
Yeah. As always, it's a pleasure, Pete. Yeah, I love you. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Glenn. Love you, partner.
All right.